Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain. Yep.
Abstain from Neil.
I'll make a motion that we accept the October 19th non-public number 2 minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah.
Make a motion that we accept the October 24th non-public meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions.
I'll make a motion that we accept the October 24th regular meeting minutes.
24th or 25th?
Second.
24th.
24th.
Hmm.
Do you not have that one?
These.
Could it be after?
They came out late this afternoon.
That's just.
Did we get a second?
Yeah.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
No opposed or abstentions.
I'll make a motion that we accept the October 25th non-public meeting minutes number 1.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Make a motion that we accept the October 25th regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Let's try to find them. Got them here somewhere. Here they are. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And
Last one.
finally, I'll make a motion to accept the October 25th non-public number 2 minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good chunk of meeting minutes. All right. So we've got some dates here. The select board will meet on the following dates at 5 p.m. Next week, we have a budget work session from 5 to 8. Then November 28th, regular meeting. December 12th, regular meeting. December 19th will be a budget work session. Monday, January 9th will be a regular meeting. And then January 17th, a budget work session if needed. Monday, January 23rd will be the first public hearing on the 2023-2024 budget. And then Thursday, February 9th, note that's a Thursday, February 9th, is our second public hearing if needed, and it will be the reading of petitioned warrant articles at that time. All leading into town meeting. All meetings will be held upstairs in Town Hall and held by Zoom. Zoom information can be found on the town's website at plymouth-nh.org. Any citizens wishing to be listed on the Select Board's agenda should notify Town Hall before noon the Thursday before the scheduled meeting. Town offices will be closed Thursday and Friday, November 24th and 25th, to allow our employees to enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday. In Chairman's comments, I've got a couple quick things. One, I wanted to thank David Porter, who was one of our applicants for the town manager position. He sent us some books. In particular, we discussed some formal municipal benchmarking, and he sent us the book. In particular, Ted, I thought that might be an interesting one that you'd want to check out. We got this other one that I'm actually really interested in reading. I gave it a quick flip through. It's about pocket neighborhoods and creating, livable, workable spaces. It's a kind of fascinating little book, but I'm looking forward to checking that one out. But thanks to David Porter for that. It was a very kind gesture. The other one I have is a thanks to Parks and Rec, who ran a really lovely Veterans Day ceremony on Friday of this past week. It was very nice, very well handled and managed, and Kelsey did a great job with that. So just a quick shout out to her. Another quick thank you, town clerk, moderators, supervisors of the checklist, and all the volunteers that helped at Election Day. Again, we had a very well-executed election here in this town, which is kind of our reputation at this point, and a lot of good people doing great work to make that happen. The last thing I wanted to do is I'm not going to make a huge deal about this. I'll just slide it down the table, but it's a thank you to our Director of Finance for all the work that you've done over the past, I don't know, year, but probably 6 months, and really helping with the transition to a new town manager, which is really appreciated. And also, this is our first public meeting, and so introducing Scott Whedon, who is our new town manager. We're extremely excited to have him on board.
Thank you, Zach.
All right. So that takes us to a new segment that we have at our select board meetings, which is a town manager update.
And if you don't mind, Zach, I think it's going to be a little longer than getting
Yeah,
us to 5:15.
Do you want to hold
So
it?
if we could move forward with Joseph's appointment
Yeah, let's
with
do it.
regards to the alternate Lakes Region Planning Commission Transportation Advisory Committee.
Yep.
I have that here for the board's signature.
Perfect. Does anything for Joseph to say to that, or is it a pretty straightforward appointment?
It's pretty straightforward.
We don't have a letter with that or anything, right?
In your signature
Here you go,
file, you
Zach.
probably do.
Oh, is this for?
Oh, that's
This
kind of,
one.
No, that's for the next one. We have two.
Yep.
So we probably need a motion and a vote on appointing Joseph Perez as an alternate representative for Plymouth on the Transportation Advisory Committee of the LRPC.
I will make a motion to appoint Joseph Perez as the alternate LRPC Transportation Advisory Committee, TAC.
second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Joseph. And so we want to take that this other one too. We can probably knock out pretty quick
Right.
for the hearing. So we have correspondence from Guy, Matthew, Jude, and Joseph. I have felt fortunate to have collaborated with a great group of multi-talented people on the board that are working toward improving our community. Unfortunately, given my current work schedule and other life pursuits and challenges, I am currently too busy at this time to participate on the board. Therefore, I am resigning from the Plymouth Planning Board effective November 10th, 2022. I look forward to assisting our town again in the future when my schedule permits and the role is fitting. Regards, Guy Matthew. So I think we just need to vote to accept that resignation.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Guy Matthew as a planning board alternate.
Second.
Any discussion?
Regretful. We'd like to get him back sometime.
Yeah, and I'm sure he will be back. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so those are some quick ones. What do we have? 6 minutes? What else can we squeeze in before the public hearing?
Any of those purchases?
Ooh, let's not do a big one, though.
We have one for 6,600, third one down.
Yeah, let's do that one. That's a PPD grant for special patrols.
So this is, because it is less than $10,000, the board does not have to have a public hearing. This is a grant that the Plymouth Police Department received from the New Hampshire Department of Safety, and it's for $6,600, and it'll be utilized for special patrols, such as DWIs, tickets, click it or ticket, that's what it's called, I think, seat belts, things like that, so.
Also text and pay as well. Yeah. There's no downside to accepting this grant as far as I can tell.
No.
All right. I'll make a motion that we accept the grant of $6,600 for the PPD.
Second.
Any discussion?
So why is there's just an $86 difference?
Oh, there's two.
There's two of them.
Okay,
One's for body worn cameras,
all right.
which we can probably knock off as well.
Okey-doke.
Any more discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Always nice to see us getting grant money. Want to take the second one as well, Anne?
Yeah, the second one, again, according to RSA 3195B, acceptance in state of New Hampshire for locality equipment, which is the body cams, we received a grant for $6,686. Just need the board to accept those monies so that we can pay for that. That money will be applied towards the purchase of those cameras.
This says for the first payment. Are we anticipating additional payments on those cameras?
Yeah, it's like a $35,000 purchase, and
Okay.
each year we're making a payment on them.
And each year we've been getting grant money
Yes.
to help
Yep,
with
this
those.
is our first actual payment towards that.
Oh, okay. Even though we've been using those body cameras for the past year?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
that's nice.
I'll make a motion that we accept the 6686 for the payment on the body cameras.
Second,
Any discussion?
I think they're really important.
Yeah, my understanding is we've already gotten some pretty useful footage with some of the things that have happened over the past year off them.
It can work both ways.
Yeah, they're very helpful.
To go together.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right.
Can I just ask if Mary Ann is on Zoom, maybe?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mary Ann is not feeling well
Oh,
this
she's not-
evening.
okay.
No, she will be absent. She texted me right before the meeting. That may be all we can reasonably fit.
Zach, we have some seats down front.
Yeah, for those standing in the back, there are some seats here in the front row if anybody wants to take those. We also have a couple empty ones in the middle if anyone wants to squeeze in. Getting a fair audience on Zoom as well. Got 5:13, so got 2 more minutes before we can start the public hearing.
Zach, I have one quick thing that we could
Yeah,
probably
please.
can address. With regards to the downtown drainage project, Kathy Lowe was the signer of the documents. June has asked for the board to formally vote to appoint myself as a signer of the documents in replacement of Kathy Lowe. So if we can have that motion and that vote, that way we can move forward with that, with the
That's
upcoming
great.
documents.
All right, I'll make a motion that we appoint Scott Whedon as signer of those, the documents described in replacement of Kathy.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Scott, you're probably going to encounter a few of those because I remember not just the downtown, just a few grants or things that maybe we filed.
I've got a
As they
meeting
come
with
up.
June this week to figure out what other ones we have, but I think there are additional documents as well, Zach.
That's great. Thank you. We're done with that one as well. These things to be signed here. While we wait. Nope. We haven't discussed those two yet. I think we already signed a lower quality version of that. Scott was doing double duty for us. So it's 5:15. I'm going to call the public hearing to order. We are going to discuss the Plymouth Energy Commission has a proposed solar array. And to start this public hearing, I think maybe we'll have someone from the Plymouth Energy Commission just give a very brief introduction to this project. I don't know, Grace, Maggie, one of the two of you want to?
We are geared up for it. We have a slideshow. We're trying to hook it up. I don't know if Dan gave me permission to share it or not.
We get to try out our new TV for the audience. That's exciting as well.
It's connecting. Can you go to the first slide?
Give it to-
Give it down to Ann.
All right. Sorry about that. We can go right to the second slide. That'd be great. So first of all, I want to thank you all for joining us. And by us, I mean the Select Board, of course, and also the Plymouth Energy Commission. We were actually commissioned in 2010, and all of our members tonight are here with us, which is great. We operate under a set of bylaws, and we have a specific purpose. The purpose is to reduce energy consumption or find ways to do that, propose those less consumption ways that we could work with the Select Board on. Also to reduce energy costs, to decrease our reliance on foreign energy sources, to move towards energy independence, and also to promote sustainable energy options, alternatives. And that's one thing we wanted to come to you tonight to discuss. We wanted to let the public know and update you on what we've been doing in the background with those purposes in mind. And we specifically have a solar array project proposal. So I'm going to do a little background, and then we'll hand it back to the Select Board. Hopefully we'll get some public feedback. I know some folks are joining us from Zoom, and then we'll do some questions, and hopefully we'll have some answers, okay? So we'll do the next slide. Thank you. So the PEC, as I mentioned, was formed and commissioned in 2010. And a number of other initiatives were set forth in the town of Plymouth to really make Plymouth a climate leader in the state of New Hampshire. In 2017, they adopted a resolution, you adopted a resolution as Select Board, to make Plymouth an ecotourism center and a place for environmental studies. In 2018, the master plan was rewritten. In it were certain specific tasks that actually were in keeping with the purpose of the Plymouth Energy Commission, and those were to explore renewable energy options and to work towards a commitment to energy sustainability. And then in 2019, along with many other communities nationally, and particularly in New Hampshire, the Select Board declared a climate emergency. Next slide. Thank you. So the project that we're going to be proposing tonight is really in keeping with those those initiatives that have been moving forward since 2010 when we were commissioned. So regardless of what you want to make of this data, it's NASA's data from the 1800s. It does show clearly that energy consumption through sources that emit carbon have increased land energy temperatures. And we might not agree on that, but if you give me the next slide, we can certainly agree that energy prices have been rising not only since the 1800s, but certainly, as this graph indicates, since 2004. Not just recently, but since 2004. And those energy costs can fluctuate, and many things cause energy costs to fluctuate. Those are just some of the examples up there. You know, based on energy supply, demands for energy. We certainly saw decreased energy costs during COVID in the early days. And then weather-related disruptions can really wreak havoc on our energy supply and therefore costs. The good news in Plymouth is that in 2017, the Plymouth Energy Commission worked with the Select Board and the town administrator at the time to lock into a contract that was 100% renewable energy in a 100% renewable energy platform through Constellation Energy. Right now, we're enjoying 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour when many other communities are not enjoying that right now. That contract expires December 15th of this year. And the Plymouth Energy Commission will be talking a little bit later totnight about some of the costs that other brokers have been offering us, but they can be as high as 18 cents as we're discovering. So we're going from 7.5 cents to 18 cents possibly. Next slide, thank you. So what does that all mean? So we've been working hard to figure out some viable alternative energy options. As most people recall, in 2022 at the town meeting, we presented a warrant article which was passed. And from there, what we did was we worked with the select board to write a request for qualifications. We sent that out to many actually, solar contractors and consultants, and we interviewed a few of those contractors. We did end up recommending to the select board that we sign a memorandum of agreement, or understanding, excuse me, with Barrington Power, and Ted Van Zant's here tonight from Barrington Power to help answer question and field anything that you have for feedback tonight. So we've been working with Barrington to come up with possible sites for a solar energy system, possible sizing based on energy usage at the town level, and this is just for the municipality. So fire department, street lights, highway department, so on and so forth. I believe there are actually 22 departments, I think, something like that. We spend about over $32,000 a year on our energy costs, so we thought this is a good time to look at alternative ways to provide municipalities with power. So the next slide, thank you. So, after all that blah, 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 this is one of the likely proposals that we may recommend to the board. We have a couple in the queue right now. There's a lot of information as we research that's actually being unveiled to us about financial options, sizing options, technology. I mean, everything's changing almost on a daily basis. This particular solar array project I want to use as an example tonight. It's on property out on Quincy Road, and it would be to build an array that's 325,000 kilowatt estimated production annually. We use about 425,000 kilowatts right now, the municipality does, at a projected cost of $686,000. And I don't want anybody to panic yet, because we've got a way where taxes wouldn't even increase. So if we, and again, we're really researching financial options of how to fund this array. But in one scenario, we worked with Barrington on the annual production would create a revenue of around $250,000, $25,000 annually. And that would actually be enough to pay off a loan payment annually, and more, and then some. So we would have revenue left over. So again, we don't anticipate that this project, as proposed at this point, would pose any tax increase. So real simply, once commissioned, the array would generate electricity. The electricity would be fed onto the grid. And I'm going to quote Skip Johnson, or Bill Johnson on this one, Johnston, excuse me, from the co-op. The co-op would cut a check to the municipality. So it would be considered, as Ann reminded me to use the right verbiage, it would be considered revenue to the town. Okay. Thank you. So I'm not sure I mentioned this on the last slide, but the estimated wattage for this particular scenario, this array that we've been looking at on Quincy Road, would actually cover 74% of the municipality's power needs. So keep that in mind. And as energy costs continue to rise, we will enjoy more benefit from those cut checks from the co-op, because as the energy costs go up, the rates will go up, and we will benefit even greater. Thank you. So where are we now? So the next steps are to finalize possible sightings for the array, to finalize that in a way that's in concert with things that are already possibly happening on the town-owned land. We also want to work to really hone down the pricing and the places where we can find the best financing. We've been calling banks. We've been looking at community development loans. There's also a lot of opportunity being launched in the Inflation Reduction Act, whereby we might be able to get a direct payment in lieu of credit for up to 30% of the cost, which is huge. So we're going to be continuing to research those opportunities. We're going to be writing a final warrant, presenting that to the select board, and taking it to town meeting in 2023. So those are the next steps at this point. We'll go to the next slide. My last slide, for those of you who are getting bored. So we just think this makes sense. It's a really good decision. It's a good decision because it's a good a business decision. It's a good energy decision. It gives us more stability and more control over where our energy is coming from. And it will stabilize energy costs and reduce energy emissions, which we believe at the PEC is really part of our mission. I shouldn't say mission, that's part of the guidelines that bind us to work with the select board in the town. I want to end there and hand it back over to the select board. And, I don't know if folks have feedback, questions. We're both, Ted and I and other Plymouth Energy Commission members are here to help field any questions that might come up.
Before you walk away, I have two quick questions. The $25,000 a year that you're anticipating, what rate is that based off of? What kilowatt hour rate?
From the rates currently.
So not the 7.5 cents we currently have locked in, something higher than that.
Correct.
But not is it based on the 18 cent, which you said was the high, or is it like an average rate?
It's a little bit of a complicated question because you're paid by the co-op based on the co-op's rates.
Yep.
So the system would be generating electricity into the co-op grid, and the co-op pays you based on the co-op rates. The rates that Grace was describing.
Oh, I'm actually realized, Ted, you should hit a microphone before so that anybody who's on Zoom can hear you.
Sorry. The rates that Grace were describing are the third-party supply rates that the town currently buys electricity under third-party supply. So it's a little bit like apples and oranges, but the default this energy supply rate that the co-op sells power at now is 16 cents, and that's what it's based on.
Okay. I was just trying to understand whether that was an optimistic 25,000 or a sort of, conservative estimate.
It's the current rate. So if you think that the rates that are current are going to stay current and continue to go up.
Well, based on that graph, it would seem like they're going to go up.
Right.
Yeah.
That's.
My other question was, you said 686,000 for the array. In the various financing options you're looking at, what's the payback period on that?
Do you mean the payback of the loan?
Yeah. So if we were to take a loan, is this a?
We're looking at 10 and 20-year loans. However, based on the blessing of our
10-year loan doesn't get you 686,000.
I'm sorry, that particular one is based on 20, but we don't know what we will be afforded through a loan if we take a loan. It could be 10 years, could be 20. If we have revenue coming into the town, I've really been trying to sort it out with Ann of whether we can take that revenue and actually apply it towards a loan and pay it off early. The town of Shelburne does that with select board approval once a month.
So is the 25,000 that's the total revenue, or is that above and beyond?
That's annual. Yeah, above and beyond loan costs. Above and beyond
That's
loan
above and
costs.
beyond loan costs. That's not 25,000 is not the total revenue you're going to generate. That's revenue above and beyond your
Correct.
financing.
I thought I said that, but if I didn't.
Okay, that wasn't clear to me, but thank you.
No, good clarifying question. Above and beyond loan rates.
Those were my two questions. Thank you both. Ann?
So I'm sorry, I happened to contact a few banks, because that's who we usually go through. Their rates have been better than most. And I also called the bond bank, New Hampshire Bond Bank. Mm-hmm. New Hampshire Bond Bank does not allow you to get out of your loan. So once you're in, you have to pay. If you pay early, you're penalized for that. Their rates right now, we're seeing at 5%. We've seen rates at local banks anywhere from 4.7 to 5%. And a 10-year loan, just a quick itemization, you're looking at your payments to be about $100,000 a year, $97,128, and that is for a 10-year loan. Now you can, if you get this rather large rebate that she is talking about, was it $450? Is that what you said, $450?
Well, it's up to 30% of the total cost. So, you know, if it's 700,000, then it would be, what's that, 21?
Now, if you get that, comes in after town meeting, if this is approved at town meeting, you can hold a public hearing just like we just did with
With the other
we're
grants.
going to do with the grant later on. 3195 B, it allows you to accept the money and spend it. So yes, you can do that, but there's nothing guaranteeing that you're going to get all that.
Right.
And that's a little bit of a concern that I have with the project. And I'm not saying it's not a good project. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying financially, this is one of several projects this year that the board is looking at. So I really need the board to consider all the projects going through
Yep.
and how you want to do it.
Neil?
Grace, do you contend that this project in a worst-case scenario would be self-amortizing?
I think we can safely say yes. You want to jump up?
Yeah, the worst case scenario is that electric rates go down to 5 cents a kilowatt, to 2 cents a kilowatt hour, and then the answer is no. So you have to make an assumption on what electric costs are to be able to answer that question. And can I address Ann's comment? The 30% grant in lieu of tax credit is written into the Inflation Reduction Act. And all indications that we have is that that's something that the federal government is offering. The only detail now is they don't have the details of the rules. So technically, as we sit here today, we don't know the details. So you're correct. You don't know that you're going to get it. But my assumption is that by March, after town meeting, you'll be able to know whether you're going to be able to get that or not and what the rules are.
It's not a grant. I just wanted to add, it's not a grant.
It's a direct pay from the federal government to the town.
I gotta respond.
Yeah, go ahead, Neil.
2 cents an hour was approximately what hydro was producing at 40 years ago. I don't think money's the same.
I think Ted was just posing the absolute worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board before I open it up to public comment? Nope. Anything from the town manager?
Not at this time.
All right, so at this time, I'm going to open this up for public comment. There's a lot of people here. If everyone speaks for 15 minutes, we'll be in real trouble. So I have this little timer that I'm only going to use if I need to use it. If people are respectful, then I don't need to have a timer. But if anybody has any comments, please approach the mic, introduce yourself, and make your comment. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Sandra Jones, Director of the Plymouth Area Renewable Energy Initiative. Everybody here knows that Plymouth is known for promoting renewable energy ever since 2004. We're on the map region-wide for being supportive of renewable energy. So we would love for the town of Plymouth to support this project. And I wanted to just mention about the direct pay. Right now, I think that's a 95% chance, 30% of that project cost will be covered by the direct pay. And this was passed through the Inflation Reduction Act. And just a little more clarity on that, municipalities and schools and nonprofits can't take advantage of that 30% investment tax credit. And so they've passed this so it allows all of us who have not been able to install solar because we haven't had that advantage of that 30% tax credit to now install solar and own it. And that's the difference. Instead of having to go through a PPA and other means to own solar for the town, if you shave 30% off the cost of solar, it makes it much more affordable. So it's within the Treasury Department right now, and they're going to be coming out with the rules about how we get that 30%. It is a reimbursement, that I know. So that has to be considered when you're looking at the loan terms. But I think it's an absolute wonderful opportunity, and who knows if it'll last longer than 2023, but word on the street is it will be available in 2023. So good time to act.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, I was just check with the audience first and then Zoom second, but anybody else in person want to comment? All right, do we have any comments on Zoom? Yeah, there's a few chats, Dan. Anything that we should address? If Judy wants to say anything. Judy? Would you like to speak, Judy?
Sure. So I'm Judy DeLeo. My husband Eric and I live out on Fairgrounds Road. We have solar on our house and solar hot water and are super jazzed up about this. I'm also a water and sewer commissioner, and we have solar on our administrative building as well as the solar array at the plant. So obviously we're super jazzed up about the fact that Plymouth might entertain this idea. The other thing that I really wanted to comment about was that this would be the only project on the docket that we have in the town of Plymouth that would actually bring in revenue for us. Is that correct?
Unknown, because we don't have the warrant finalized, but conceivably it could be.
Right. So, I mean, here's a project that we can save 30% on, and it would pay us back every year. It seems like a no-brainer to do it. You know, let's just get it done and start being energy forward.
Thanks, Judy.
Steve Whitman, former Energy Commission member, and I just wanted to share my support and thank the Select Board and the Energy Commission for continuing to work on this. So I know Grace and Maggie and others have been working on this at a time that I think is better than when we've tried in the past to do similar types of things, and it's a project that's bigger and potentially has a longer lasting positive impact on the town. So I'm really happy to see this come forward and glad Ted could help kind of work through some of the details. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Mike?
Mike Ahern, resident of Route 3 in Plymouth. I didn't come here to speak on this issue, but it was something when I served on the select board that we discussed at length about a solar array. And we must have entertained the topic for at least a year, and it just wasn't financially doable at the time. And I'm sure that the 30% extra savings to do it might make sense now. But I do worry, and one of the things that wasn't factored in when we discussed it 3-4 years ago was the cost to dismantle and shut it down, because they have only a certain lifetime. And when you have to take those materials and put them into landfills, they're not going to break down. And I'm just thinking down the road, 15, 20 years, when all these solar panels start coming off roofs, they don't just last forever, and they're going to start taking up a lot of landfills. They're going to start leaching into the water table, and I'm kind of very concerned about that. But I love the idea of having lower electric bills. There's no one more in favor of it than me.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Grace, did you want to speak to?
Yeah, just real quickly, there is a frequently asked question handout on the back table that I really encourage you to take it. The move towards recycling the parts for solar arrays has really taken off in the last couple of years. There's a really good EPA website that talks about all the parts. The recyclability of all the familiar parts of the panels, like the metal parts, the glass parts, that's already in place for recyclability. And now actually, we can now recycle the silicon. And all those parts can be recycled with an overall greater than 80% efficiency rate. So we could also build in, and I appreciate Mike bringing this to our attention, we could also build in a decommissioning piece. I'm probably not going to be around then. It's probably 35 or 40 years from now if we were building it today. But certainly through the contract with the town, we could build in some kind of decommissioning piece.
Do we have any estimate on that decommission cost? Typically, no. I mean, I know it changes, and you're projecting out 20 years or however long.
The challenge is that it's hard to know what the value of the scrap metal, which is the majority of what you're going to get out of it, is. So
Sure.
my guess is scrap metal and scrap silicone and all the pieces that are going to come out of that are going to be highly valued at the time, because we're going to be at the point where there's going to be a lot of solar panels being recycled, and someone's going to figure out a good use for them and a good value.
All right. Any other comments from the audience on this? Yeah, please.
I'm just going to read if that's okay, because I'm a little distracted right now.
Sure.
My name is Karen. This is my daughter, Raya. We moved from Vermont last year, and we're really excited to be part of this community. And when I heard about this opportunity, I really had to come and support this project. And I fully support this project. I think it'll strengthen our community by producing energy locally. At a time when it's already been said, energy costs, infrastructure, and reliance on outside energy sources can be very problematic. So I think this project will build resilience in our community and make our town a lot stronger. And most importantly, being a new mother, I think by choosing to invest in solar as a town, we're serving as a model to future generations to do the right thing and think beyond the present. I know it's an upfront cost, but I fully believe that investing in solar is going to benefit our town financially in the long run, and more importantly, make it resilient and sustainable. And the benefits to us and future generations are clear, and I fully support this. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Any other comments? With that, close the public hearing. And do we have anything else we have to do administratively? Is there a second hearing or is it just
Yes,
the one?
there's-
You will have a second
So
hearing.
we talked about that up
when you
front.
get ready to bond or loan or whatever you decide to do. So right now, we are moving forward with this project.
And we'll see it.
At
There's
the
also
cost of $686,000. Okay, because the last, I know you got another public hearing, but what was presented to us a few weeks ago looked like 705 was the estimated capital cost for mid-2023. And that was for the Hitchner property, so we are not considering the Hitchner property anymore.
we're looking at Quincy Road.
Right.
And that's the only area.
I don't know.
It's probably the air. Do you want to speak to that, Grace?
I think we're still just trying to outline that, and as I mentioned, we would only look at town lands as long as we could be in concert with other activities that are ongoing on those lands. So if we were going to continue the conversation about Hitchner, we'd want to sit down, figure out if we can coexist, as Joe would say, on that lot together, and maybe look at long-term plans for that lot. So we have not completely abandoned Hitchner as a possibility. The one other thing about Hitchner, I think it's okay, Ted will throw down the flag at me, but there's a fairly high annual rate if we do install at that site from the co-op. It's like $6,500 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's what I meant, a rate, membership rate.
Mm.
So, that's sort of like, not, doesn't make the numbers look as good.
So far I'm hearing that the board wants to move forward with this project. And what I'm looking at, I just need to know numbers. 686,000 is what we're going to see on the warrant for this project, correct?
Yeah, there's not going to be any rebates or grants or whatever.
No, I mean,
until-
we can always write in there that with the potential for these, but you really can't budget for them because there's no guarantee.
No. Even offsetting the checks that we might be getting from the co-op, we
No.
can't include that as well.
We can't change our budget numbers to reduce our revenue costs by department until we know what those true costs are.
Right.
So we still have to budget for that as well.
We also, we can't make it conditional on receiving the payback?
Could.
ERA wants you to put on your warrant what it is that you're raising. This is not a sense of the meeting.
Mhm. No, I
That's
understand.
conditional.
Yep.
A sense of the meeting can be conditional. This is yes or no. What are you voting for? And that, you know, you can't, you have to be clear and concise with your voters, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, admittedly, it makes it less clear to the voter if they think that they're going to pay
Yeah.
X, and it's actually going to be, you know,
Right,
60 or 70% of X.
right.
So in terms of clarity to the voter, that doesn't really help.
No, no. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear when we put everything together. I'm working on the warrant now. We'll be going out to bond or loan or whatever you want to call it for that amount. Is that right?
Yes, the full appropriation would be the $686,000 in the warrant article. We also can list in there what revenues could be possible.
Could be, yep.
And then through discussion at town meeting, that also can be raised and substantiated by the committee, but the full $686,000 has to be on the warrant article for appropriations.
Right, yep.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
So I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what we're going forward with. That's it. Thank
That
you.
all sounds correct.
Oops, she's moving.
We got it.
I just feel like at town meeting, we're going to know so much more, right? The Inflation Reduction Act will hopefully be launched, and so we can speak to those things.
That would be great.
But I understand that we need to write a warrant in the meantime.
I would also strongly encourage you to produce a brochure that makes it very clear as well.
Maggie had a comment too. That's okay.
Yeah.
Maggie Mumford, Plymouth. There are folks that are sure enough of the Inflation Reduction Act and the direct pay that there are nonprofits already formed that are offering bridge loans to allow municipalities to access that rebate before the project is complete. So there's a lot of certainty about this.
Thank you.
We can't borrow without the authority of town meeting, though.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
okay.
Yep. And with that, let's open another public hearing. Second public hearing of the evening. The Plymouth Board of Selectmen, Plymouth Select Board, will hold a public hearing in accordance with RSA 3195B for the acceptance of unanticipated funds from the Invest New Hampshire Municipal Planning and Zoning Grant Program, funded by the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs, in the amount of $134,000. The purpose of this grant is to complete a housing authority planning phase 1 needs analysis and planning, phase 2 regulatory audit, phase 3 regulatory development. Joseph, can you tell us about this?
Hi, yeah, thank you. So I first brought this to the Select Board back in August, and we thank the Select Board for the support at that time. We thought it was a great opportunity, and the time since that first introduction to this program, we have applied and been awarded funding under the Invest NH Municipal Planning and Zoning Grant Program. What this funding will do is allow the town of Plymouth to contract with a housing and planning consultant to conduct a sort of thorough housing study of the town of Plymouth. It's a sort of a 3-phase program. It came out of what was originally called the Governor's Housing Plan. It's part of a $5 million program to help municipalities look at their housing needs, their housing wants, and formulate regulatory or examine regulatory barriers that may or may not exist. So the first phase of this project is sort of conducting a housing study. The town has a housing study that was completed in 2003. A lot has changed since then, and this would allow us to get that updated, get new data about what we have in Plymouth for housing, what we need, pricing, income levels, all sort of a holistic view. The second and third phase would be in light of that information about what the town needs, what the town wants, would allow us to look at, are there any areas where our current development regulations are not serving the needs of the community. So, we're really, we think it's a great opportunity. We're really excited that Plymouth's been awarded this. We're one of the first communities to have been awarded this funding. It is in the amount of $134,000. So we anticipate that if the select board authorized us to, accept the funding, we would be looking to really hit the ground running soon and get, over the next year to 14 to 16 months, be really, aggressive with reaching out to the public, getting public input, collecting data, collecting, possibly surveys, all different types of public input. We'd really welcome the consultants' help with, reaching out, communication. So, we're asking tonight the select board to authorize the acceptance of the funding, the unanticipated funding, in the amount of $134,000. This is from the Invest NH Municipal Planning and Zoning Grant Program. It's funded by the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs as a part of the $100 million Invest NH initiative with ARPA state fiscal recovery funds, and it's administered jointly by New Hampshire Housing, Plan New Hampshire, and UNH Cooperative Extension. And if signature authority is required, we ask that it be given to town manager or finance director. And if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those, or happy to sit down and let the public speak.
So we'll have useful information in 16 months to then go forward with either changing our zoning or...
Yep, and we believe that's a realistic timeline, and the timeline we put in our application was essentially throughout the next year, over the course of the next year. By, say, December or January, we would have sort of almost the program completed, and we feel that's reasonable given, that it will allow us to hire a consultant to really help us with a lot of this outreach and the legwork on this. So, that all funds have to be expended by July of 2024, but we would anticipate, given that if any regulatory changes were proposed, that, it would need to be heard at town meeting anyway. All regulatory changes are, and will continue to be under the jurisdiction of town meeting. So, we would anticipate aiming for any proposals completed well in advance of the time that would be needed to properly notice any changes that would be brought to March town meeting. Now, I should say not this town meeting, the subsequent one in 24.
Is this kind of like in concert with the the statewide housing assessment, and this is how we're going to be dealing with that?
Yep, that'll definitely be a part of this. There are, each regional planning commission is doing a housing needs assessment. What this allows us to do is really dive a little deeper into Plymouth's specific situation. Plymouth is unique in a lot of ways from a housing perspective. There's a lot that I think we could benefit from, really having a dedicated Plymouth-specific consultant whose 100% focus is looking at what we have, what we need, just because I think, and I think the 2003 housing study did a nice job of this too at that time, of really, picking through particular issues to Plymouth, which sort of dovetail with that region-wide and statewide data, because certainly housing has been a big issue at the state level, prompting the needs assessments at the regional level. So I think it'll dovetail very nicely to give us a more granular look at Plymouth.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Town manager?
Yeah, I would just like to support the acceptance of these grants and working in code enforcement and working through the zoning ordinance. There's a lot of things that need to be evaluated. I think the housing assessment in the town of Plymouth definitely needs to be evaluated, as well as the zoning regulations. And I think there's several different pieces of that that will come out of the evaluation that will make things better for Plymouth with regards to the zoning ordinance. And what our actual housing situation is today, not back in 2003. And just thank you to John, Rebecca, Mike, in their efforts in putting this forward and getting this moving. I know the committee's been selected. They've had, I think, one meeting maybe with regards to being able to come up with a criteria and selecting the consultant, but a very worthwhile project for the town of Plymouth.
Thank you. With that, I'll take any public comments on this project.
Frank Miller, member of the Economic Development Committee. I am in support of this acceptance of these monies. I think the principal benefit we would get out of it is the compatibility of definitions of the different types of housing units. One of the biggest problems we've had in the past is compliance, because when a person submits for an application to build or rebuild a house for the different types of housing, we have our definition within our zoning ordinance, but then there's the same definition in the International Building Code, there's a definition in the fire codes, and then there is a definition of the federal housing codes. What becomes very difficult for compliance is meeting and standardizing all of those definitions, because if you're going to receive money from the federal government, you're going to design, build, and specify to their specifications of description of a particular type of housing, which may conflict with our local. And that has been our problem in the past when homeowners or landowners are trying to comply with changes to codes and standards in housing, and we have a conflict between the code systems. It's called a technical infeasibility, and our code system has that today. So I stand in support of this program. It would help us immeasurably in moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Anybody else? All right, close the hearing. And so we need to vote on acceptance of those funds.
I'll make a motion to accept the $134,000 for the Housing Planning Opportunity Grant.
And to appoint
And-
Scott Wheaton or myself as signers.
Oh, and to appoint Scott Whedon as a signer.
Second.
Do we want to do the or?
We don't need to.
With just one?
One is fine.
Okay, just making sure. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. 2 big hearings in one night. Let's loop back to Scott. Town manager update.
Good evening, everyone. I will say it has been a very busy 10th day of my appointment to town manager. And I want to give an update on what activities I've been up to, but as well as some activities of our town departments and what they've been doing. So in starting, as part of my presentation is coming to the board, as town manager, I talked about value statements, the mission, the vision, the values of the town of Plymouth. And I had a great department head meeting last week, of which we discussed the mission, vision, and values. And the department heads had very few comments, but we're all in support of our value statements. And I just want to read those real quickly. Our mission statement is to provide affordable, fair, high-quality municipal services in responsive, accessible local governance, ensuring all persons the opportunity to enjoy, contributing to, and being part of the Plymouth community. Our vision will be a town with an emergent urban vibrancy guided by a small town sense of community. Urban vibrancy is the buzz, the vitality, and the creative energy that propels economic growth and cultural achievements. Our core values. The core values representing the beliefs and behaviors by which all members of the Town of Plymouth organization shall conduct ourselves in providing a common basis for making and evaluating all decisions and actions are as follows. We'll have a customer-focused service. We will have high integrity, innovation, accountability, and stewardship, all things are what we're talking about tonight with regards to the solar array and the housing opportunity project. Strategic priorities, the board, I met with the board as well as Ann in a work session last Monday night, November 7th. And we came up with 7 strategic priorities that are my responsibility over the next 3 to 6 months. And they are as follows. Operation efficiencies, which I've started looking at policies, processes, more specifically to procurement and purchasing, and the purchasing power that we may have with some of our neighboring communities, which I've started meeting with our neighboring communities, but also with SAU 48 in the Plymouth schools. I had a great meeting with Kyla Welch last week, and Joseph and I have a follow-up meeting because I learned something that I didn't know about the assistant superintendents at SAU 48, is they have a grant writer. And Kyla and I had a great conversation about grant writing. And Joseph and I had have a meeting Friday morning with Pam, the assistant superintendent who does the grants for Plymouth schools and SAU 48. So there may be some opportunity there to expand on what we currently have in place. Downtown drainage project. Updated bids and communication plan for construction. On Thursday, November 1st, the second bid opening for the downtown drainage project occurred. June Hammond Rowan, Josh McAllister from HEB, and Joe Fagnant, our highway superintendent, were in attendance. There was only one bid received. Last time we received 3 bids. There was one bid received, and this was approximately $1.8 million higher than the original cost estimate of $3,375,000. So our next steps are up in the air right now. June Hammond Rowan has spoken with the EDA. Where we only have one bid, it's suggested we bid again. We do have a meeting this week with Plymouth Village Water and Sewer. Next week with Plymouth Village Water and Sewer on November 22nd to kind of highlight where we go from here. So more to come on that project. Another item that I've been charged with is initiating pilot agreements, payment in lieu of taxes, with our tax-exempt nonprofits that reside in the town of Plymouth. Keeping in mind that 53% of those property owners are tax-exempt. So 47% of the property owners in the Plymouth are funding the town budget. So I'll be working hard on that. I have a meeting tomorrow with a consultant, and then I have a follow-up call on Friday with an attorney that we had engaged back probably 6 months ago with regards to initial conversation on pilot agreements. I've had meetings and have been setting up meetings. Like I said, I've met with SAU 48 in the Plymouth School District. I've met with the town of Ashland. I've met with about half of the downtown businesses. I was fortunate enough to meet with the Rotary last Wednesday morning. And during that meeting, I learned of a styrofoam recycling program that the Rotary across internationally support a recycling program for styrofoam. I had the opportunity to talk with Jim Kahn, our recycling center manager. Jim's done some research on it, so that's something that we may be able to move forward with in the upcoming near future. I have meetings scheduled this week with the town of Campton, the town of Rumney, and the town of Holderness to see how we can collaborate and strengthen the relationships that we have between our neighboring towns and ourselves. The budget process, obviously I came into the middle of that process, but I've been coming up to speed. I have a meeting this week with the Advisory Budget Committee with Mark Halloran and Mike Courier to go through their recommendations after meeting with the department heads. And then as Chairman Terrell mentioned tonight, the additional meetings that we have upcoming, meeting with each department, as well as the public budget hearing process. I've been dealing with some personnel issues, and those are always going to occur, but hopefully we have positive spin on our personnel issues that we deal with each and every day. And the last is everybody's heard of the Pirate Party. Pirate Party takes place on Indigenous holiday weekend, and we as the town of Plymouth cannot sustain that type of behavior in the town of Plymouth. So we're working with our town attorney and the Attorney General's office to take some action to assure that this doesn't happen on a public street in the town of Plymouth. It's not fair to our residents, it's not fair to our taxpayers, and we shouldn't have that burden upon our services in our local community. So those are some of the things of my strategic priorities that were set at our work session last week. Next, tax rate setting with the Select Board. We worked on that last Monday night. And I'll just read a statement that we'll be issuing. Is the Plymouth Select Board met on November 7th for a brief work session to set the 2022 tax rate. The Select Board considered several items associated with the proposed tax rate, including the proposed tax impact of $2.10 per thousand in evaluation that was presented to voters at town meeting in March of 2022. This would have been a significant tax increase on Plymouth taxpayers in today's economy, in balancing the need to keep enough funds available in the town's unassigned fund balance in case of an emergency. New Hampshire Department of Revenue recommends a range between 5% and 17% of all budgets associated with the town's overall tax rate. The recommendation equates to $1,014,236 to $3,448,402. The Select Board has announced that the 2022 tax rate will be set at $31.44 per thousand in valuation. This is a decrease from the proposed impact of $2.10 per 1,000 in valuation of all town meeting in March of 22 by 89 cents, and an increase of 95 cents from the 2021 tax rate of $30.49. So good news, based on departments pursued additional revenues last year through successful grant applications and much needed adjustments to some of the department user fees. In addition, the ability of our administrative staff to set realistic forecastable revenues 18 months prior to the end of the fiscal year is admirable. The fund balance over the last few years has increased from a minimum of $72,000 in 2019 to the current year-end initial available balance of $1,096,480. The board decided to apply $425,000 of that balance to offset this year's tax rate, leaving a balance of $646,480 available for future tax rates in the case of an emergency. Building committee was designated by the Board of Selectmen for the Fire Department, Police Department, and Recreation Department. Happy to say that the committee met on November 7th. We have quite a range of participants that are on the committee: Chief Morrison from the Fire Department, Frank Miller, Mark Halloran, Frank Hinkle, Mike Courier, Brooke Wakefield, myself, Rob Reese, Alex Hutchin, and Kevin Pierce. A healthy discussion on exploring options and considerations on the scope of the committee's work for the fire station, police station, parks and recreation, and possibly a community center. Takeaways from that meeting: department heads are to evaluate the needs for the next 20 to 25 years to make it a realistic building when we're assessing what each department may need. We contacted the Turner Group, an engineering firm out of Concord, who did the work on the last building in 2006, of which it didn't pass at town meeting. Fortunately enough, we were able to meet with them today, and in meeting with them, they're providing us all of the old documentation, as well as providing us a structural assessment of both the fire department and the police department that should occur within the next 3 to 4 weeks. Our next meeting of the committee is on December 5th at 3 o'clock at the Plymouth Fire Department, of which time we'll do a walkthrough of the fire department, the police department, and Lisa Rash, the director of our recreation department, will take us on a walkthrough of their facility at Plymouth Elementary School. With regards to the airport, we were able to renew an agreement with Argentech Solutions Incorporated to work towards trying to entice them into establishing Plymouth as an unmanned flight center. Argentech AGTS is an unmanned aerial system integrator and service provider specializing in medium endurance fixed wing VTOL aircraft, typically operated under low conditions. We were able to work with them and secure that agreement, which is in place for another 3 years. In our accessing department, We have solicited through an RFP process for a forester consultant. The forester that we were using has retired out of the business. We were fortunate enough to solicit a new forester, and what the forester does is assist in evaluating the intents to cut throughout the town of Plymouth. We will be putting a memorandum of understanding in place with the new forester and getting this individual started. Our highway department. Work is progressing as Highland Street, the intersection of Warren Street, and other paving and patching has taken place on town roads. Work was done on Sunrise Circle and Stony Brook Road, of which the department received emails on praise for the work completed. A quote received: "The road crew is a great group of men who are skilled workers and are extremely pleasant to work with. They surely know their job. We appreciate the efforts and feel fortunate to have your crew working for our town." Nice job, Joe. Library, I met with Diane and Allison, the assistant librarian. I'll be meeting with the Pease Public Library Board of Trustees this Thursday at 4 p.m. More to come on that. Parks and Recreation. A lot going on in Parks and Recreation, and Zach mentioned one of those items. And the Veterans Day ceremony. Kelsey, who works for Lisa, was the one who organized it this year. It was her first time organizing the event. And you never would have known it was her first time organizing the event. As Zach said, it was very respectful, very courteous, and very distinguished towards the veterans that have served not only in the town of Plymouth, but from across our country. One of the big things the Recreation Department has done since meeting with them is they've updated their mission statement. And I think it really reflects on our community in totality. To enhance our community with diverse programs, lifelong leisure and fitness activities, social connections, and educational opportunities, we encourage exploration of our natural world by maintaining and developing open space. The commission, staff, volunteers are committed to creating a strong and healthy community. This year's downtown Halloween trick-or-treat, the businesses, was another successful event. They couldn't have done it without the nicer weather and the business participating. Over 50 businesses participated. And Lisa just wanted to let everybody know that they much appreciate all the engagement that is done with regards to not only the Halloween downtown trick-or-treat, but also the scarecrow event where businesses and families built scarecrows and put them in the common. I've heard several positive comments with regards to that event, and they stayed up for about a week after. So the Recreation Department's been very busy and doing a lot of things there. And lastly, a reminder from Park and Recreation, as the ski and skate sale at Plymouth Elementary School is this Friday and Saturday. Plymouth Police Department. On October 27th, the police department participated in the New Hampshire Drug Take-Back program. There was a container in the lobby of the police department, which they participated and were successful in having residents from the town of Plymouth put in that container unused drugs and drugs that were remaining in their household. On November 6th, the Plymouth Police Department and Plymouth Fire Department assisted in the escorting of the Huskies 11U team who won the state championship. So our Pee Wee football team, 11U under, won the championship. The good news is they won the championship against the town of Pelham. The day before, the high school lost to the town of Pelham in the Division II. So there's a little revenge there back with the 11U team. Last week, the Plymouth Police Department logged 762 calls for service. They had 9 arrests, 7 investigative reports, responded to 2 motor vehicle accidents. They issued 4 warnings and 1 citation. And parking enforcement and the police department issued 124 citations in the town of Plymouth in the week. 762 is probably one of the biggest numbers I've seen over the past couple weeks, and even before that, as I received their statistics throughout the year. Plymouth Fire and Rescue, Fire Department held an open house during Fire Prevention Week. Very successful. Many children And it was nice that day because the youth soccer teams were practicing and having games at the elementary school. And it was communicated there that the Plymouth Fire Department and Rescue were having an open house. And so many of them came to the open house, and I have to commend Captain Peck from the fire department on putting together such a successful event with so many activities that the children could participate in and learn about fire prevention and safety. Operation Santa Claus is now in full swing, currently accepting donations and plan to have work details the evening of December 8th and pick up on December 10th. Volunteers are always welcome to participate. You can just reach out to Chief Morrison or Deputy Chief Pierce. On Monday, they were first due at a building fire in the town of Campton on Lower Beach Hill Road. 2 firefighters, Firefighter Driscoll and Fitz, are to be commended for a quick knockdown of a shed fire, preventing fire extension into a home. On Wednesday, they responded to Plymouth Regional High School that resulted in a wood chip boiler fire. Again, successfully extinguished that fire, quick knockdown, no additional damage. On Thursday, they responded to a room fire on the 3rd floor of Grafton Hall on Plymouth State University campus. Again, fire was knocked down quickly, extinguished, only a room and contents fire with damage. So I commend them on the work that they did just last week, never mind the number of medical emergencies they're responding to, not only in the town of Plymouth, but with the contract ambulance services that we provide to our neighboring communities. We are saddened that we received a resignation from firefighter Clark. His last shift will be on December 21st, 2022. We wish him the best and are happy to know that he will remain as a per diem firefighter and medic and remain as a call member of the department. Tyler was a great addition to our department a few years ago. He went through paramedic school. He is a paramedic, and we're fortunate enough to have him staying on, working per diem shifts, cover shifts, overtime shifts, to provide that service continually to the town of Plymouth. Planning and development, a lot going on in planning and development, and I won't talk about the grant that Joseph spoke about tonight. But one of the things I do want to talk about is that Joseph in June attended the Lakes Region Planning Commission Transportation Advisory Committee meeting on November 2nd in order to give a presentation about the town's proposal, $5 million in funding for improvements to Main Street Route 3 from Toby Road to Fairgrounds Road, road alignment and sidewalks through New Hampshire DOT's 10-year plan. The proposal was submitted to the Lakes Region Planning Commission Executive Committee, who would be deciding on the projects to be forwarded out from our region. I'm happy to report that our project was rated number 2 out of all of the projects that were received. Thank you, Joseph, for your hard work on that. And hopefully we will be hearing more of when those funds will become available to either do a phase 1, phase 2 project. Phase 1 would be up to the bridge. Phase 2 would be making a sidewalk from the bridge up to Toby Road. So that's one important piece that I wanted to mention. The second one, a storm asset management program. Public meeting was hosted by the planning board on October 6th. This session provided an overview of the project. Joseph Perez is leading the work with the EPC engineers, are conducting an assessment of our stormwater infrastructure, advising on the management of this infrastructure and the development of assets management program. There is a level of service workshop for this project November 16th at 4 p.m. The project is funded by a $30,000 grant received from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. Joseph is also leading a project on selecting an engineer for the Loon Lake Road Culvert Project. We've been through that process. Joseph is doing some reference checks, and from there we should be able to select a volunteer. I mean a volunteer, not a volunteer, but an engineer to work on that project. And last, Joseph attended the Northern New England chapter of the American Planning Association annual conference in mid-October. He also attended the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Service Assets Management Conference on November 3rd. So Joseph is getting more training, additional training, to expand his knowledge on the areas that he's working on currently as a community planner. Town clerk. Just a couple of things I want to talk about with the town clerk is there was a new RSA that was implemented back in July which requires the town clerk's office to have a secure room for unused ballots. So many of you know the gold room, which is across the hall, used to be a additional meeting room. We've decided that that is the election room now, where unused ballots will be kept, and the supervisory of the checklist and all the election officials will be able to meet in there and take care of their business. Josie wanted me to mention tonight is that she'd like to express a profound sense of gratitude for ballot clerks and assisting election officials with this year's primary election and state general election. Their friendliness and professionalism in conducting their duties had significant influence on the voters' experience. They affect the voters' perception of whether the election is conducted fairly and ensure every qualified person gets to mark and cast a ballot that is accurately counted. Having witnessed their optimism in exercising Lowell democracy, I strongly believe that every voter had a positive and smooth voting experience. There was over 2,300 votes cast between the ballots that were cast that day and the absentee ballots. And thank you, Zach and Neil, for being there at the polls. I was there a couple different times during the day, and I can't say that I've seen a smoother run process than what we had there that day.
Ted as well helped us
An
at the end of the day.
additional piece to that is our public television manager, Dan Salzer. He deserves recognition for initiating the idea of broadcasting at the polling place to educate voters on the check-in and registration process. We received positive response from the public for live streaming results. I believe the viewership could feel a strong sense of community as we were administering the election. We look forward to working with Dan again on this project and other projects as we move forward. Our welfare department, they fielded 15 calls and assisted those that requested assistance from our director. Mary Ann takes her job seriously, is very articulate about the calls and speaking to those that have requested services from the town. And last but not least, this year's homecoming celebration will be held on December 3rd, starting at 5 p.m. Chief Hutchins has completed all of the associated paperwork with permitting and has also requested the land use for the bonfire that held on the property of Plymouth Village Water and Sewer. He works closely with the Plymouth Rotary, the Plymouth Fire Department, and businesses along the main street and throughout the town of Plymouth. We have a great people working very diligently to make this event happen and be a very successful event. So that concludes my report for this week. And any questions, I'd be happy to take any questions, comments, and I do have a copy of my report for each of you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
Maggie, yeah, do you have a comment? Sure. Yeah, please. And thank you, Scott. I'm not sure if you slept this week, but...
Turn it this way. So I worked for 18 years as a sustainability coordinator, focusing on energy at Holderness. And my experience sometimes was very frustrating, but the main takeaway was that if you have building projects, the only way to incorporate energy considerations into the infrastructure is to incorporate them early and consistently, and that there are only two ways to do that. You either set goals for energy efficiency and stick with them as in this case, municipality, and that they're formal, or else you include somebody with energy as their first consideration on the building committee from the word go. I worked on 9 different building projects, and that's my main takeaway from those. So I'd hope you would consider either one of those possibilities. Thanks.
In terms of the building committee, I'm also on that committee. I was late to the meeting, though, so I didn't make your list.
And actually, I was on that committee as well.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's okay. Just if those were the only mistakes in your entire presentation, it's pretty solid.
But those were big ones, Scott.
Yeah, you left the 2 of us out.
I'll do better next time.
That's right.
Well, regarding the the changes that that you were suggesting as far as like energy considerations and such, and since we have a couple of members of the planning board here, that might be a point of discussion at the next meeting, perhaps. But
Yeah, I mean, that committee currently is quite large, and we haven't reached a point where we even know what we're doing yet. It's very exploratory, but I think I think as we get close, because we don't even know, are we proposing a fire station? Are we proposing a police station? Are we proposing a community building that's got, a community center in it? We don't even know that part yet. But I think your point about getting either someone from the PEC, yourself, maybe Maggie, I know you have tons of free time. I think that makes sense. We might go a few more months before we are ready for that.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. The more resources that we have, and like I've always said, our network is our net worth. Let's bring new people in that know what they're talking about and have experience in those areas to participate in the committees that are formed. So thank you. The only thing, Zach, I would like to add is I would like the board to make a motion to accept the value statements, the mission, vision, and values, so we can get that up on our website and get that communicated out to our staff.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the mission and value statements.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. Where are we at
Purchase
here?
orders.
CCI.
CCI construction, shoring and repair of roof and stamped structural plans for new wall at the recycling center. So I'm not sure who we have here to speak to this project specifically, but there's a wall at the recycling center that is failing and has produced a significant structural risk. That's been identified, and we've got a quote here.
We got
Scott?
one quote, yes.
Was this the only
It was
quote
the
we received?
only one that we could get to respond to us. We actually reached out to people, called them. We didn't put it out for RFP. We called people trying to get the work done as soon as we could because the damage to the wall is only getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And actually inside the garage itself, we've had a cement block now start to fall. And you can see that there's holes through the cement where it's deteriorating.
I think the one thing that we're fortunate about CCI, Jeff Downing, who resides in the town of Plymouth, was willing to come out immediately, take a look at the project, and find a contractor that was willing to quote on it. So, like Ann said, that was the only quote we received. Several calls were made out. Nobody responded back to us. So I think based on CCI and Jeff Downing's willingness to come right out, take a look at it, give us a quote, so we can get this repaired. I was up there at the end of last week. It certainly is an issue and needs to be addressed sooner than later.
And we can't guarantee that they will actually be able to do the actual work this winter, but they will at least be able to get through and get the plans so that first thing in the spring, they will start doing the work. Other companies that we reached out to, I had to call them 2 or 3 times, and when I finally reached them, they said, we're just too busy. So we just did not have any success. So my plan, my proposal here is for the board to accept 2 purchase orders, one for $144,231, and the second purchase orders, and that one, I'm sorry, is for CCI Construction. The second purchase order is for $17,600 for Atlantic Recycling Equipment, which is the person that has to come in and move the baler. Because that wall, it's right up against the wall, and you can't just have anyone remove the baler and then reattach it and make sure everything's working fine. So my other item to add to that is that we have $450,000 right now in ARPA funds. I know that there is some talk in the past about using some of those ARPA funds for a grader. We will still have between $225,000 and $250,000 sitting there waiting for the highway department to come up with that purchase item. But this is something that we could take out of the CIP because we kind of put a number in there last year.
Yeah, right at the last
coming
second.
year. Yep. Again, this is $160,000 that taxpayers won't have to add on to the warrant this year coming up, and we can get that done sooner rather than later.
I strongly recommend the project get approved.
Is there any risk to the current recycling center employees of working in that building?
From what I have been told in my observation, I don't think there's any immediate risk, but I think if it's let go any longer than, the next 6 months, I think you'll see that concrete deteriorating faster and faster as time goes by.
Yeah, I know that the worst time for concrete is the freezing and thawing, and we're about to get into that, so.
But in Jeff's proposal that he made, there wasn't any immediate threat that he felt needed to be addressed.
Okay, good.
It's been a while. It's been in bad shape. They've been trying to fix it.
It was just brought to our attention during the CIP process. So I'm not sure, maybe if somebody knew about it, but as soon as it was brought to administration's attention, we moved on it, is when I.
Two managers ago, it was a problem that we were dealing with.
I didn't know that.
Corner, yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you from an operational efficiencies perspective is that evaluations of all town buildings and facilities should be done on a yearly basis and recorded so that we have a agenda of how we're going to address these situations as we move forward.
Yep.
Because that hasn't been done in the past, it hasn't been recorded in the past, and if we aren't doing that, I don't think we're doing our due diligence in maintaining the safety and integrity of our town facilities and buildings.
Agreed.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the expenditure of $144,231 for the repair and structural plans for the recycling center.
Do we need to note that that's coming from ARPA funds, or is it?
It is actually on the purchase order, but you can note that if you wanted to. Sure.
I'll add the note that it's coming from the ARPA funds.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say that the current situation with the ability of contractors to hire help is so severe that it's made it difficult for contractors to take on more work at this time.
Mm-hmm. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
And as a quick follow-on, I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure of $17,600 for Atlantic recycling equipment to remove and replace baler as needed in conjunction with that roof repair.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, old business, Grace Garvey, energy broker numbers.
So I'm hoping that you got the email with the broker numbers from last week.
This one, is it this?
Correct.
Yes.
And it seems like it's still a little bit of a moving target. I got some refreshed numbers just today from People's Choice, which is number 2 on your list. And they went down a little bit. For instance, the 0% 12-month term was 0.11986. So it was down a little bit from the 12.12364 number. So, we know the contract's expiring December 15th, and I've been warned that we have to make sure that we disconnect from that mothership because they could automatically renew and then we're stuck again. I don't know what the whole clause says in there, but to look. The PEC's suggestion is that we go with the co-op. Right now their pricing is 0.6169, and that will be renewed or refreshed in February for another 6-month period. But it would be obviously up to the select board what they want to do, if they want to engage in, say, a 1-year contract.
Why are you recommending NHEC over People's Power Choice?
Because we're hoping to have the solar array, if passed at warrant, and if all stars align, by next fall at the latest. The sooner we start generating power from that solar array, the sooner we start generating income, revenue.
Don't we still need a power agreement with somebody even for the remainder? No?
No. We're going to hold the one that we currently have now with Constellation. Is that right? Yeah. And that expires December 15th or around that time. We will let them know that we'll be canceling, and then we'll just go over to whoever you choose tonight.
Right, but if Grace was saying the reason to go with NHEC, which is more expensive than People's Power Choice, is because we're going to theoretically start generating our own power.
Mm-hmm.
Even when we're generating our own power, don't we have to buy some power? We're not generating 100%.
It'll still, it isn't a purchase power agreement. It's just that you are staying with the co-op at that point because your service.
I might help too, Zach.
If we were going to be selling power, the co-op wants us to be
We'd be with them.
Customer.
Well, that might be part of it, but Zach, if we sign a 1-year contract with People's Choice, it's for a certain amount of kilowatt hours per month. And
so
if suddenly
it has a
we're
minimum
deviating
number of kilowatt hours or
sorry?
something? It has a minimum on it?
Yes. So it looks at all the bills and says, we will sign a contract with you for this price as long as we get the whole
generate that much
shebang,
power.
right? We provide for all the municipalities. So once we start generating, we're like scaling back what we were actually buying from the supplier. Does that make sense?
No, actually it doesn't. Because even when we're selling power back to NHEC, we're not direct using that power because we're not putting it on a property where we have facilities to use the power. 100% of the power we generate from the solar panels is going to be sold to NHEC, which means 100% of the power we use also has to be bought from a power provider. Does NHEC require us to be purchasing power from them in order to sell power to them?
They don't require, but just let me walk you through this again. Our contract with Constellation expires December 15th.
That makes sense.
If we sign 1 year, we have to sign for the full shebang of providing.
We're going to be buying a full shebang of power forever.
For 1 year.
No,
but if we
forever.
start generating.
Because even with the power panels, we're going to be selling that power to NHEC. We're not going to be using that power.
Correct. So then we're in violation of our contract, as I understand.
We don't have a contract yet. We have a conceivable contract.
If we sign one, though, then we would have a contract that says you.
So what you're saying is that the contract with NHEC says we have to buy power from them in order to sell power to them?
I'm talking about the other suppliers.
I don't understand how the supply is attached to the generation.
What I'm trying to let me see if I can do it again. Let me try and do it again. With New Hampshire Electric Co-op, we don't have to sign a contract with them.
Okay.
Okay. With the other power purchase brokers, we would have to.
And as such, we save, 20%, 25%.
So if we go with 1 year, let's just pretend, right? So with People's Power Choice from December 15th to 2022 to December 15th, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
But we start generating and we need to buy less power back.
Does that generation direct offset our bill, or is that all?
What are you thinking, Maggie?
With New Hampshire Electric Co-op, it would.
It would, yes.
So it's.
Well, it's a revenue. It's a check back to us.
That's my question. If it's a revenue, then how is the revenue connected to the purchase? Why are those related at all?
Maybe you've got a point.
Why wouldn't we buy from the cheapest source and sell as much power as we can?
You might want to look into what the co-op requires.
That's possible. I should probably run the question by Bill Johnstone.
Yeah.
Again. It wasn't asked before, and it makes me wonder. Go ahead, Ann.
Could we have Bill at the next meeting? And
that sounds great.
You can throw questions at him that he...
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry to have to route those through. I know you're a...
No, you were asking a really good question that did not really occurred to us. I mean, I'm not a power broker. I don't really know how this all works. I just know that.
Become a power broker, Grace.
Maybe I am. I don't know. You decide. I think it's a good question, and we have enough of a good reputation or relationship with Constellation. We could also ask them the question.
I mean, either way, we're probably not buying from Constellation.
You're like this people's power choice.
Well, only because it's
cheaper.
Significantly cheaper.
Yeah. So
we'll get a hold of Bill and see when he can be at a future meeting, and hopefully that'll be prior to the 15th. And we'll look at the.
to have it wired.
Well,
Would have
we'll
to be,
try.
yeah.
But we'll make that happen.
Okay.
All right, and we'll let you know, Grace, what date that'll be.
Okay.
So that we'll have everything in front of us. So will you have updated?
You want me to reach out to Bill?
If you want to.
That's fine.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's easier enough for us to do.
All right. So we'll just see when he's available.
Well, we do too, right? We know your schedule too, don't we? For next meetings.
We'll reach out to him and let you know.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you all. June, or is June online, or are you representing this, Scott?
June is not here. Joseph and I will facilitate the conversation with Mr.
Sounds
Hills.
great. So we have a status update on the acceptance of Chatterin Lane, Ski Lift Road, and Point of View Drive.
Come on up, Joseph. Jeff, if you want to come up and have a seat here. I did speak with Mr. Hiltz today with regards to the 3 roads that he is looking to have accepted by the town of Plymouth. We had a conversation with regards to Mike Vignali, the town's engineer, his checklist of things that need to be accomplished. And I think what Jeff wants to do tonight, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff, is to give an update on the progress
That's what I was hoping to do, if that's
of where you
acceptable.
are today.
That sounds great.
Jeff,
Thanks,
can
Jeff.
you use the mic just so everybody can hear you?
The
Either
mic
one.
right here.
Anyone you choose.
Not used to that.
You pick.
Joseph is going to be speaking. You need a mic as well. So.
Is around.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Would you prefer I start with June's letter or Mike McNally's letter, or does it matter?
Whatever you think's clearest.
I think, Jeff, if you give an overall update of where you are today
Okay.
on the punch list that
All right.
Mike had put together,
All right?
and then things that still need to be worked on between you and your attorney, and engineer that
Sure.
you have consulted with.
All the major items on the punch list have been accomplished, i.e. the clearing of the sediment ponds. The cracked pavement on the base pavement has been cut, removed, and replaced. All the top pavement has been placed. All the manholes have been raised to grade. All the guardrail has been put in, and all the top pavement is on. To my recollection, and this would need to be verified with probably either Joe Fagnet, your highway superintendent, and/or Mike McNally, the only other significant thing that needs to be done is the shoulder gravel installed. And I'm supposed to have a schedule for that this coming Wednesday, at which point in time I could update you. And the other thing is there's 5 stop signs that need to be installed. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
With just a couple additional points is that there is a stone wall that's in the town's right of way.
I'm sorry, I forgot, yes.
Stone wall that's in the town's right of way on one of the properties that Jeff is working on, getting that taken care of, as well as a couple easements for drainage and wetlands that I believe.
In June's letter, in the walkthrough, I had made a statement in that walkthrough that there was a conservation easement put around a vernal pool. I misspoke. And what I should have said, and it's verified in the wetlands permit, the restriction on building around that vernal pool is in the wetland permit. It's not in a deed. It essentially does the same thing. It's just that I misspoke in the terms that I used. So just for clarification.
Thank you. And I think 2 other issues is where a cul-de-sac was supposed to be, there's a hammerhead.
Yep.
And I think Jeff has some additional information on that.
That-
Other than that is a cistern that wasn't placed in the location that was originally designated. But my understanding is that the fire chief at the time, Buddy Tebow, did.
Brian Tebow, I think it was.
Brian
Yeah.
Tebow did approve on that. But I think the thing that Jeff is working on is final plan as developed that will be presented to us. And Jeff will be attending a planning board meeting in the near future as an informational meeting to provide the planning board with an update of where we are today with regards to this process, as well as the as-built plan for the site. Am I correct, Jeff, in stating that?
Yes, I'm just looking through my notes, Scott, to find the, I have a signed approval by the chief in reference to that cistern relocation. And in reference to that, what I call the conservation easement when I misspoke, this is the copy of the wetlands permit, and I highlighted the area that I was referring to.
And I think, Jeff, when you go to the planning board for the informational meeting for them, not that that has to be shown tonight with regards to Brian Tebow's email, but I think it's important to inform the planning board of the as-built plan so they understand the difference between what was proposed on the different phases and what we have today as the as-built plan. Am I correct, Joseph?
Yes, so there's, a couple pieces to that, but generally, yes, I understand there's been some discussion, Jeff, between yourself and June about going before the board at, an upcoming meeting as sort of an update to the board, and then at a future meeting under the, the changes that were made up there in the field under that provision of the subdivision regulations, sort of a separate process there.
Yeah, this is a copy. I don't know if the selectman wanted to see this or not, or I can give this to Joseph and we can pass it around. But this is where it was faxed back to our office and approved by Brian Tebow in a sketch of the relocation of the cistern.
Cistern, okay. I'm sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, and so if that wetlands permit, if I remember, there was a condition on that to execute a deed restriction for the protections buffer of the vernal pool. Is that right? And
well, actually, but it said it's supposed to be in the deed as well.
Was that put in the deed out there? I don't know that we have.
Brian Ray can supply that for you. But,
okay, yeah.
But again, I just want to clarify that I misspoke when I said it was a conservation easement. It's actually in that permit.
Yeah, and with regards to the relocation of certain things, the hammerhead turnaround, the cistern location, that kind of thing, I know we've discussed that.
Is that something to be discussed here tonight or at the informational hearing at the planning board level?
I would discuss it at the informational hearing with the planning board. I think
the planning board's the one who has the authority to update those plans, correct?
I think what we've done tonight is you've given them a good update on where we are today with regards to the punch list that Mike Fignali had put together. You're still working on a couple items, and I know your attorney is working on those items with you to get those completed.
Correct.
Also, Plymouth Village Water and Sewer, with regards to the sewer line, I know that your attorney is working with them to get some verification on how that sewer line will be maintained and taken care of.
Right.
So I think we're moving in the right direction. I think there's a few things left to do, but Jeff has made great progress on what we have asked him to do on the punch list, even though there's some additional things to come. And Jeff's willingness to be able to dig through this information and find things that we have not been able to find here, because maybe our record keeping wasn't the best in the past.
Well, some of the problems, Scott, and to the board, and it's not the town's fault, it's just a matter of circumstances. There's been multiple planners, because I originally dealt with June, which was a great experience. And then there was a young lady, I think by the name of Katia Fox, and then a Marion Bader. And then there was another lady that came in that I believe lived in Franconia or Sugar Hill. And then June and now Joseph. So it's been kind of a...
I think we've done well in facilitating with Jeff what our requirements are, what his needs are, and we'll continue to move forward in making sure that our services are provided to Jeff of what he needs. And Jeff has assured me that they will come through with all of the items on the punch list and have those completed. Jeff, can we keep these documents, or do you need these?
Those are the only copies I have right now.
Okay, we'll give them back to you.
Once that punch list is complete, does the select board vote to accept those, or does it have to go to town meeting?
No, the select board would vote to accept those through the road acceptance policy, which is Board of Selectmen's authority.
This isn't a major thing, but I kind of stuck on the fact that a stone wall or what was?
Yeah, I was going to ask more about that before I left, if that's okay.
Was it the owner that put a stone wall in?
There's an encroachment into the right-of-way. When
Yeah,
the owner
okay.
built their house and did their site work, apparently, from what I understand, the site work contractor built the stone wall within the right-of-way limits.
Okay.
And that has caused two problems. Obviously, number one, there's an encroachment. And number two, when the wall was built, it wasn't built correctly. So there was some sediment from behind the stone wall into the ditch line. And I pointed that out to the landowner. And what they have since done is brought their site work contractor back, and they've placed filter fabric behind the wall so that it stops the migration of fines through the voids. So I guess the question that's going to be up in the air, and I need some guidance on this, I don't know if that's a planning board issue, an engineering issue, or a selectman issue, as to how to resolve this stone wall issue, if it can be done through an easement and let the wall stay there, or if it has to be moved. And I advised the landowner that there was a meeting tonight. I don't know if there's anybody here from that.
I don't think there is.
No, I guess
Jeff.
not. Oh, Joe's here from the highway department. Have they talked to you, Joe? No, they haven't? Okay. Well, I've advised them about the problem and that there was a meeting tonight.
Ann?
I
So-
think we would, I'm sorry, I think we would leave that up to Mike McNally and Joe for their final recommendation on what has to be done.
Okay, so I should talk to them.
And Joseph can follow up with Mike McNally on that and Joe to get our final recommendation of our punch list on that wall.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is, it's not a problem I created, but it's in my lap now.
I get it.
Did you have a comment, Ann?
Just that the homeowner for the stone wall called the other day, and my understanding was that we weren't getting that technical, so I did tell them that they're welcome to Zoom in to listen, but to reach out to you as well.
Okay.
Directly.
All right.
Because it's your roadway right now. Yeah.
So we
Yeah, there's
will-
no one online.
I can't see who's online.
I can't either. The chats.
Now, as far as establishing a maintenance bond on amount, is that something that's done at the selectman level, or is that the planning board level?
Mike, do you know that?
When, at some point in time, Mike, it's my understanding that when this punch list is done and approved, that typically there's a maintenance bond that's required for a year. And then there's a value that has to come up to be able to.
I think
Mike McNally does that?
There's a number on that.
Okay,
Check on that too. We will check into that as well.
okay.
Sounds good.
And I think for this point in time, that's my only questions, unless you have something for me.
Jeff, is the landowner that we're talking about with the stone wall, is her first name Joan?
I don't know what her first name is, but her husband's name is Steve, and the last name is DeMarco.
All right, because we have a Joan online, but we don't know who Joan is, so I just didn't.
Hi, this is Julie Bernier and Joan and Jason.
Oh, okay.
They're not landowners.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
She
The
does-
people on, again, Marianne is also a neighbor. They're not on from what I can see.
Okay, thank you.
So Jeff, any further questions, direct them to myself, June, or Joseph.
Okay.
And we will facilitate the conversation, and hopefully get resolution soon after we've gone through the proper protocol.
Okay. And if I could, just one quick question for Joseph. The informational meeting is this coming Thursday night, is that correct?
Yeah, if you're still intending to meet with them on Thursday, you're on
I'm
the
sorry.
agenda. Yep, that's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
at what time, Joseph?
6:30 here in this room.
All right,
Yep.
I'll see you then.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
All
Thank you,
right.
Joseph.
Now on to committee reports. Village Water and Sewer, we're all set because no Mary Ann. Planning Board, Neil.
Our planning board meeting was postponed until the 17th.
Postponed. It'll be Thursday night, as just stated by Joseph, at 6:30 right here. Campus Community Council won't meet until spring sometime.
Correct, but pursuant to our last meeting, I did distribute some numbers provided by Marlon to the people who were in attendance.
Okay. Good. School district.
For PES, I was unable to attend because I had a conflict with a meeting right here.
Yeah, understandable. I was unable to attend for a conflict that I don't even remember what it was anymore, to the high school. Conservation Commission, Neil?
We haven't met yet.
Haven't met. Look at this, we're getting through these quick. Capital Improvement won't meet again until next year. Advisory Budget Committee.
They have some meetings that were discussed earlier set up for this week.
And we have our first budget meeting next Monday. Yeah. LRPC, Bill?
I could not attend the last executive committee meeting, but I asked Joseph to attend for me, which was very valuable attendance, actually. He couldn't vote, but he could explain what the projects were for the TAC, so.
Yeah,
that was
that's
very
great.
helpful.
Anything we should know about from LRPC, Joseph?
I think a lot of it was covered in Scott's update. The executive board did vote on the region's priority project, determined that the final priority ranking had Plymouth as the second priority project for the North Main Street. That's really the big takeaway. They're exploring some other stuff on a smaller scale, but no other major updates aside from that 10-year plan update, which is pretty significant for Plymouth.
That's great. Thanks for representing us there.
Thank you.
Parks and Rec Commission, Ted?
Yes, there was a meeting last Wednesday on the 9th. Scott stole some of the thunder, but
Sorry, Ted.
basically they have a number of programs going on. They've been trying to do some more outreach to some of the populations that they have not previously been able to focus on. They scheduled several trips, one to the Mohegan Sun that they had to cancel due to lack of registration, but they have a number of other ones that they are planning to go to other places like Boston. I was writing quickly. One of the things that they're looking at is renting vans. They thought about purchasing one, and I suggested, well, if they're not going to use it all the time, that maybe renting is a better option so that we're not having to maintain yet another vehicle. They have a number of different people interested in coming up with different revenue opportunities. I saw a lot of back and forth regarding that. I'd say as a group, they're very interested in finding new and inventive ways of doing things. They are doing very well with their new online credit card acceptance to pay for having people pay for things. And they did ask me to put in a shameless plug for their ski and skate sale. November
Friday
17th.
and Saturday.
November 17th, 18th, and 19th.
3 days.
So they specifically said, Ted, promote at selectmen's meetings. So,
Good.
Lisa, I did it.
Well done.
And that pretty much sums it up.
Ski and skate sale is a tradition in this town.
Yeah.
It is. It is. It's a big deal.
Bought a lot of stuff over the years.
The same.
Sold
I've
too.
already been given a list of what I need to go acquire again this year. No Parking Committee, PERLAC, Pioneer Regional Local Advisory Committee.
Actually, it's River, but that's okay.
River.
Yep.
I thought it was River, and then it said region here, and I just read off the sheet.
And I've got the meeting on tape, but on Zoom, but I wasn't able to attend because I had to come back here after we started the, it was the same night as.
The interview that
Yep.
we had. Yep. All right. No updates on economic development unless Scott has magically reinvigorated that in his.
I haven't created anything, but
10-day
next Tuesday I'll
barnstorm.
be meeting with Frank Miller with regards to some information he has in his office and some updated things that he's put together to get a start on that.
Ooh, that sounds awesome. Thanks, Frank. Bill, Energy Commission, we've heard so much from them tonight. Do you have anything to add?
That was a result of several meetings as well.
Of course. And no Marianne, so Chamber of Commerce. All right. Any public comments? No comments from the public? Well, I want to express the gratitude for the civics class who have all hung out for 2 hours of board discussion Appreciate it. Do we need to sign anything for all of you in order to get your to get your 120 minutes of credit? Well, please approach, and we'll get that done for you.
Yeah, can we split the difference?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll spread them out.
Neil, you ready to sign?
Sure.
All right.
Okay. Here. Just grab anybody at the table.
Grab someone with a pen.
Yeah, that's right.
Sure. Show me where you need to have the signature.
Zach's over
Right
here in the
here?
middle. He's
Yeah,
free.
Right here? Okay.
Today's what?
Today's the 14th.
Okay,
It
thanks.
is.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out. Sorry.
Gracias.
Thank you so much. It's the 14th.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure can.
Thanks.
I took civics.
Was it Mr. Kiley?
You're welcome.
Quick interview.
Sure can. I'll write it right down.
Whoop, that's you. It's okay.
It's okay.
We
We're
all
recording
do it.
You can just push it back.
Yeah. Could actually do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was quick.
Divide and conquer.
Not many.
Divide and conquer. It was a big group.
I must have taken all the wind.
Big
you
group of
had.
students.
We usually have like one or two, right?
I know. When my son was here last year for it, it was him and two of his friends.
Oh, yeah.
So there was only three of them.
Found on the
It's probably like the last day or something like that, and I think our last meeting before their deadline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Might be.
Some of
I
them
have
will.
heard nothing
remember.
about
I actually went.
You can go to any meeting though.
They can, yeah. So they can go to
So,
school board, which is pretty short.
Yeah.
I'd go to, well, actually, school board would be good.
Parks and Rec meeting would have
I'll
been
check on that.
ideal. This is like 40 minutes.
What the
Planning board's a lot more fun though.
disposition was.
It depends on what you're
They
interested
didn't
in.
know who she
Parks and Rec,
Planning board.
they have food.
It was in social media.
Yeah.
Bring food
Oh,
every
Parks and Rec
time.
has
You know that.
All right.
They had a picture.
Can you
of
put-
her.
Okay, we
Got
could
a
use a
muffin
motion.
maker over there, so we should be getting muffins.
Motion? Anybody?
I'll make a motion to enter non-public in accordance to RSA 91-A:3, number 2, letter A, personnel.
Yep.
One second.
Aye.
Neil, your vote. Zach, your vote. Aye. Bill.
Aye.
Ted.
Aye.
Okay, non-public.
Just make sure you're
Make sure we're clear. This is an easy one.